So the planning is really important, and it partly because there's so many different facets of a community arts project. So one is the art. So if you're either contracting an artist, you need to think carefully about who would make a good match. The more local the artist is, literally within that neighbourhood, the more powerful often those connections are.
Knowing who's in your waka as well, because if you've got good people in your waka, it can just make the process a whole lot smoother.
I think it's really helpful if you can come to the people rather than necessarily expecting the people to come to you, and to use a space that may be familiar to them or is geographically close to them so it's easy to access. They feel already that they have a sense of a right to be in that place.
Is that room booked? Is it safe? Is it accessible for people to get in if they're, wheelchair users? And making sure you've got the right materials for the job.
Developing relationships with sponsors or just even local businesses, local people who might be able to contribute sponsorship in kind to your project. The budget, so again, just knowing in advance what things are going to cost, and including in that marketing, letting your community know that there's a project and do they want to be involved. There's marketing involved with that. And then if you've got a final event associated with the project, there's marketing around that. How do you tell people? How do you let them know? And also the artists will want to organise documentation of the project, and often the person who's contracting or commissioning the project will want documentation as well.
To facilitate a group process takes cold, hard skills in facilitation and in leadership. And if you don't have those skills, then you need to go and find people who do, whether that means watching someone else's process or having a mentor. Having courage to ask someone whether they can, you can watch or participate in another process is very helpful.
It is not one person doing something creative. It is a group of people creating together. It's a group of people, and I have my story and you have yours. But what we don't know yet is, what is our story? What is the story that sits here that is a reflection of us as a group? What's the group story? And that's what we're going to create together.
So you have to be really flexible. You have to be alive, which you do in any creative process, to what is in the room and what is coming forward and how to kind of meet the people coming to engage with that work. But then you also need to know you've got some strong, robust infrastructure around you and in your team. Because we're working with more flexibility there, we therefore need a stronger infrastructure.
Be able to turn and be flexible and adapt in a moment's notice in order to do the most appropriate thing or respond in a way that's going to be good for the project.
So much of the work is fluid and changes, and you come into a space to meet with a group of people with a plan, and the minute that you're in the room, you recognise that that plan has to go out the window and you have to replan in your head. And so your toolkit, your kite, needs to be really full.
Letting go of control and letting the process that has to happen take place. And sometimes that's stressful because you're operating on a different time frame perhaps, but it's really important not to rush things and allow the process to unfold.
Creating an environment or a space where there is deep fun. So it's fun, but it's more than that. It's kind of purposeful fun. There is laughter and there is joy happening alongside the growth and the development.
So creating options for participation and really clear communication with your people ahead of time. One thing I keep thinking about is like not being upfront about what it is that you're asking from a group. So sometimes being, hey, we're really open to something that we want from you and we don't know what it is, but what we want it to be is a song. You should just say,
we want a song from you.
Make sure you have enough time. It takes a long time because it's all about the connections and the conversations and the groundwork and showing up and being there and being visible in communities as long as, well, forever actually. So you don't just like whiz in and out and never to be seen again.
When you have authentic conversations, time can go out the window. So it could mean that a project will take longer than you had envisaged initially, or it could actually mean that a project happens in one day. Some of the planning could go out the window because time is not necessarily easy to define in that authentic storytelling space.
At the end of the event, wrapping up and having a good critique of what went well, what could be improved, it's really important to close the project.
It's really good to be aware of what you want to evaluate almost before you start, so that you're collecting that information as you go along. Not just receipts to submit to funders, but also the stories, the photos, what you learned through the process, what people thought of it, what could you do better, areas to improve. So it's good to know in advance what information you want to collect.
You need to have some sort of celebration. I don't mean a big, wah, wah, wah celebration, but you need to actually have something so that people can feel that the project has finished.
We have to work in ways that we can capture the success and the outcome of the process. Look at what we just did. We started here, we performed this outcome, and now we're here. And it's this kind of closing, reflective time together. Sit in that space, because that's where you're going to learn, and that's where you're going to hear the participants themselves talk about what that journey has been. And the outcome and that particular part that they took part in is such a small part of what they've experienced.